Hi everyone, I'm Tom and today I'm going to be showing you Assembly, Resequence and Override, two expansions for Assembly that are on Kickstarter right now along with its sequel, Sensor Ghosts. And I'll put a link to the campaign in the description right there. The base game stuff that I've got is the final version, but everything else is, prototype and paste ups and stuff, so don't think that's going to reflect the final quality that you'll get. Look to the base game stuff for the likely quality of that, and see it on the Kickstarter page and stuff. So this is Resequence to start with. If you don't know anything about Assembly, I've done a playthrough of the base game that I will link in the description as well for you to take a look at, and it's only a quick game, won't take you long. I'll see you back here in a minute. So here is Resequence, and you might notice there isn't that much different yet, although there are these two stacks of modules. So the main objective of the game is still the same. We're still trying to get our ship built and try to overcome the machinations of the AI that may or may not be on humanity's side. But now we can pick any lock we want to be our first one. But from then on, we have to lock them in sequential order. And so that just to begin with is a huge difference in being free to just get ones that happen to have fallen into your lap. Once you've started on one, you better have a plan for the rest of them. Now, the whole expansion does come with new sets of Malfunction Cards. In fact, the expansions can't be played with the standard game Malfunction Cards. You can, of course, you don't have to play with Resequence or Override every time. You can mix it up. But there are symbols on the Malfunction Cards that say which set they're compatible with. This particular set is only compatible with Resequence. And you can tell that because this 6th one here, for example, says it immediately cycle both token stacks. So this only happens in the Resequence expansion. So a couple of things have changed. There are now 2 stacks of modules and they're face up so we can see what they are. And at the start of the game, I've just realised I made probably a bad decision here. At the start of the game, you roll the die to put one module on the board. That's the way it worked in the original game. But now you decide which one is going to go in that space from the 2 that are available to you. And as it is, that's probably not... doesn't make that much difference because whether I put the medical or the hydroponics in the number 1 space there, it's 2 away from where it needs to be. But since I don't start the game with an anti-clockwise card, maybe I want to put the one in that needs to move 2 clockwise. And then we can see that the shuttle bay is next. So every time that we use a deploy command now in this game, we don't just draw one at random, we decide which of the 2 are going to go in the space that we roll. So that gives us some more control over where these go to balance out the much harder objective that we've got of locking these in sequential order. The lock action changes a little bit, but just to reflect the fact that you have to have locked the previous lock in sequential order to be able to lock that one, unless it's your very first one. The swap action has changed a little bit. I don't need to show you the yellow swap action, you know what I mean. Instead of just swapping 2 modules over, you can swap a deployed module with one from the top of the stacks. There is another way that you've gained a bit more control over these things. The rotate cards have changed as well. Instead of just moving all of the modules 1 or 2 spaces clockwise or anti-clockwise, depending on the card that you've played, you can now cycle the token stacks with them instead. Take the top ones off there. So if I played this and I didn't want to rotate, I wanted to cycle, I would take the top ones off of the stacks and put them on the bottom. And now I have some different ones. Maybe I would want to cycle and try and find the transporter one so I can use a swap action to swap straight on there so I can lock it and start my amazing sequence of locking everything. Now there is a brand new card, the Platform or Hold card, and this is always used to support a rotate card. And because of that, it never needs to be verified. That's, in the multiplayer game with the limited communication and stuff. So when you use this card, you can pick a bay and temporarily treat it as if it was locked. So if I wanted to rotate, the medical one into its space, maybe it's all the way over here, and I've got the elevator. The elevator's 2 away, but the medical is 3 away, and I want to use one rotate card to get them where I want them. I could play this hold first and treat, let's say, the shuttle bay. that is treated as a locked bay now. And you know, when you rotate, you ignore locked bays. So now I could play my rotate clockwise card. This one moves 2, this one moves 1, 2, and now they're in the right place. This now comes off, and that shuttle bay is now treated normally. So you can have it's again, a more control over these things, albeit temporarily, but they can really get you out of sticky situations and give you extra ways of thinking about this lovely little puzzle. Oh, and before I forget, the wild card has been changed to reflect the new platform or hold card. You can use it as that as well. And there are new roll cards in there. Again, some are for all of the original resequence or override. But this one here, Kate, for example, she is specific to the resequence module because, again, she references these token stacks. Once in the game, you can shuffle the token stacks together and then equally divide them into 2 new stacks if you know you really get stuck with what's coming out. And there's a set of new glitch cards as well to add to your collection. So this is everything that's in the resequence part of the expansion. Little tweaks and an extra type of card and 2 module stacks and stuff to give you more control over a much harder objective. And now here is Override. Now here the computer has managed to get hold of some robots on the assembly line and is using them to get in our way. So now we need to lock all of the modules as normal, but as well as all of the 12 rooms, we have to lock the robots in as well. The robots can only be locked in if they're on top of a module, and it's the correct module, and it's the space the robot needs to be, sent home, put on charge or something like that. So at the start of the game, we rolled the die to put the first module out, as we do in every game. Then we put the green robot on it, and put the green robots home on the opposite space. Then we roll another one, put a new module out, and do the same for the purple robot. Now, as you might see, the robot is on top of the hydroponics module, but it wants to go to medical. So how are we going to do that? Well, some of the cards have been changed to reflect this. So deploy happens in exactly the same way. Lock, for just modules without a robot on top, works exactly the same as the base game. If it's got a robot on top, though, it has to be the right module and the right place for that robot. But it doesn't cost any extra actions to lock a module and a robot. The swap has now changed. If you want to swap 2 modules without robots on, that's fine, that's just the same as the normal game. But you can also swap the position of 2 robots with their modules. So you can't mix and match. If I had another module out here, I can't swap these 2 because one's got a robot, one hasn't. It has to be swap just these 2 or just 2 without robots on. Or I can swap the positions of the robots but not their modules. So that might help me out more. And actually that helps me out massively because the hydroponics module now, it needs to go 2 clockwise still. But once I've done that, the purple robot is home. So that would be a perfect way to do that swap actually. Totally intentional. The platform hold card is still here. I talked about it in the resequence expansion. You can use it to temporarily treat a module as locked. But you can put this on a module with a robot in it, and so that whole module is going to be treated as if it was locked, and the module and the robot are not going to move for that particular rotation. And then finally, rotating works differently as well, because you don't just rotate everything anymore. You can either rotate everything without a robot on it, and that works the same as normal, but places with modules and robots are treated as locked and are skipped. You can rotate all of the modules with robots, but everything that's just got a module and no robot is skipped. So this would be a terrible move, but if we went anti-clockwise 1 space, for example, this one would just move over here. This one treats both of these as locked and would jump right over and close the gap a little bit if that's something you needed to do. As it is, though, we'd want to go clockwise, wouldn't we? Or you can just move the robots. Now, robots can move 1 or 2 spaces, clockwise or anti-clockwise, depending on the card that you're playing, but they can't move off modules, and this includes they can't skip over spaces. So, anti-clockwise here, this robot wouldn't be able to move. There are no modules here. This one could move 1 or 2, depending on my preference, but If this one wasn't here, it couldn't move 2 onto this one because it needs to move across modules to be able to move it all. And as with Resequence, there are new Malfunction cards. Some are compatible across the board, but this is one I picked because it's only compatible with Override. So for example, the 6 here, this can't be locked at the same time as a bay with a robot. So you've got to mix things up to be able to lock those. Number 12 can't be locked in the first cycle. Number 3's in the wrong position. Someone's probably noticed that. It's the robot messing me up, isn't it? Number 3, when you lock it, you immediately move undocked robots 1 bay clockwise with their module. So yeah, far more ways to mess you up. A lot more to think about. Some, enhancements to your powers in this, but yeah, there is a lot more to think about when you need to manipulate not just the modules, but the robots and how restricted you can be in your actions and the multiple uses you have to think of for your cards, because it's not just I want to rotate everything 1 or 2 in a direction anymore. What do you want to rotate? Can they rotate that way? Loads of extra fun stuff to think about. But this is everything, as I mentioned earlier, it comes with, loads of sets of Malfunction cards, new glitches, new roles to play, and yeah, the new types of cards that are needed to play with these 2 expansions. But I hope that gave you a quick idea of what is in these. If you are unfamiliar with Assembly and you watch this far, you can watch my playthrough, and hopefully that will give you an idea of whether you'd be interested in playing it. Thanks for watching this though, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye everyone.